Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 12. This week, we're going to be talking about two theories. The first is structural family, and the second is a critical practice theory. Structural family therapy is a treatment that addresses patterns of interactions within a family. Mental health issues are viewed as signs of a dysfunctional family. Therefore, the focus of treatment is on changing the family structure rather than changing individual family members. Therapists work to uncover any habitual patterns, routines, or behaviors that negatively impact family dynamics and seek to establish healthier routines within family structures in order to create a dynamic that's loving, stable for everyone in the family. This therapy is recommended for families who have gone through trauma, blended families, single parent families, and families at risk. Just some major concepts. The first are family subsystems. So a family contains many subsystems that perform different tasks according to the family requirements. Family subsystems can be based on role functions, gender, age groups, and common interests. So some common subsystems in a family include spouses, parents, children or siblings, and extended family. Problems can arise if one of the subsystems starts to take the role and place of another subsystem. Second is executive authority. So the family structures require a person or persons to have a primary decision-making power. An adult member, according to the series, should be the one to exercise the primary authority. So during assessment, the social worker should determine who has the power and how decisions are made in the household. The social worker should also assess the extent to which the opinions and needs of all members are taken into account, the ability of the family to problem solve as a unit, and just the family flexibility to adjust to decisions when appropriate. So when it comes to family boundaries, boundaries are paragates through which different members and subgroups within the family system can communicate with one another. So the boundaries can be rigid or dispersed. But just rigid means that there's a lot of limitations on boundaries and communication among different family members. This can cause feelings of isolation among different subsystems and are disruptive to the family unit. Scattered boundaries are the opposite, and an ideal family system is a mixture of both types of boundaries, which will allow easy contact for support as well as independence. So a balance. Roles are important in a family household. Roles are the behaviors and responsibilities to which each family member is expected to adhere. Roles may pertain to such issues as curfew, household upkeep, academic standards, who is expected to work, and how much money is spent, and the interaction between family members. So some rules are openly talked about while others are acquired through habit. And this theory states that rules should be clearly understood by all family members. So you will see in our role play what happens when certain rules are not clearly stated and the dysfunction that that can cause in a family. When it comes to roles, a family member's role refers to his or her functions within the system. Each family member must manage different roles. So some examples of these roles are breadwinner, money manager, caregiver, housekeeper, and it's important to note that roles can change over time. The social worker needs to assess how a family's roles are defined. So if they're appropriate, if they seem to satisfy each family member, and if the member is experiencing any stress due to role overload, which you will also see in the role play for today. Alliances are just conditions when two family members interact cooperatively, and it could be a positive alliance, so something that contributes positively to the family unit, or negative, which is more rigid and can be causing one of the family members to feel excluded to the family. And these are just some terminologies. Triangle is when two family members turn their attention to a third member for relief or support when in conflict with each other. Two adults in conflict may choose to blame a child for creating their problems, which is known as a scapegoat. An adult and a child member join forces to block the power of another adult member. That can be another example of a triangle. And negative triangles often develop without parties kind of being aware of them. Triangles are often a natural process of seeking relief from tension, but they may cause structural problems, which is very important for this theory, and can become disruptive to other members of the family system. Flexibility is extremely important. Families frequently need to adjust their structures to accommodate for both predictable and unpredictable changes. So flexibility refers to the ability of the family system to make adjustments that preserve its positive function. So some predictable changes can be things such as life stages from childhood to adolescence, moving, things like that. Unpredictable changes, as we see in the role play, are abrupt job loss, illness, physical injury. Can also be just changes within the relationship or significant others. Communication refers to the ability of people and relationships to engage in clear and direct communication with one another. So structural communication is important, and we see communication obviously both verbally and non-verbally. So the practitioners will assess and may help the family to become aware of where they lack communication and what roles they have. An example that a practitioner can observe is who's permitted to talk and to whom about what issues, and in what time or what tone of voice are people using. So if communication skills are enhanced, enhances, other structural activities are facilitated. Cultural considerations. So social worker practitioners need to be aware of cultural norms when family background is different from their own, which is something we talked about a lot, so that their assessment will not be biased. And family goals are important because members tend to develop a sense of purpose regarding their plan in the family and how they can mutually support one another. So many goals include just kind of raising responsible children, which is what the article talks about, developing loving bonds, and just kind of getting a sense of spirituality. That can be a big goal for a family. Social workers should assess the family's awareness level and be conscious about the goals and how they function within the family. Some additional concepts include family life cycles, the development of phases of the family. So this includes unattached adults, new partners, young children, adolescents, adult children, and persons in later life, which you will also see in the role play. Some family myths. Myths are just shared beliefs that evolve in a family's effort to define itself, set boundaries within the outside community, and perhaps protect members from both internal and external conflicts. So these are just some examples of myths that are created within the family. So outsiders are not to be trusted. People should always stay close to home, and mom doesn't really abuse drugs. So there are some myths in our role play that you might be able to point out as well. So all of these entities listed contribute to the conditions that influence family structures. They're not easy to conclude without careful assessment, and these concepts listed direct the manner in which structural practitioners define the problems and experiences by their clients.
So the assessment for this theory is for the social worker to use a take charge approach and lead the family to a resolution. The practitioner is seen as the expert and in the best position to understand the family structure. Social workers make an effort to connect with each family member, and they should be perceived as credible and empathetic. Structured warm-up exercise. So you should promote that the family feels comfortable as possible. You want to maybe use an icebreaker to begin. So have everyone introduce themselves and tell you something about them. And then ask all members to describe the issue that brought them there and details about the background of the issue. And you want to try to get info by observing and providing non-threatening interactions. So you don't want to do this directly, but you want to observe and use or look out for some of these. So how does the family present itself structurally, the roles of members and how they play out in the session? What subsystems appear to be prominent? Which members appear bonded? Are there alliances? And if so, are they rigid or fluid? How does the family typically manage stress? And what are member expectations of one another? Lastly, is the family involved in any external systems like a church or a community-based organization? Enactment. For this theory, social workers encourage members to enact rather than describe their interactions, especially the ones they find significant. During enactment, social workers identify positive and negative patterns of interaction. A social worker alerts family members of problematic communication patterns and asks if they wish to change them. And lastly, they should be able to identify weak bonds between family members. So interventions for this theory, supporting family systems, identifying improvements between family functioning and providing positive feedback, and also teaching them stress management to encourage family members to use techniques which promote relaxation before and after family interactions. And what's super important, communication. So working with the family to become active listeners and clear speakers. The family's level of communication demonstrates how well they function. So some examples of this are allowing each member to speak uninterrupted. Also looking out for nonverbal behaviors that affect communication, like the way they're sitting or if they're using like hand gestures that might be perceived as aggressive. Another example is deciphering unclear messages between family members. So if there is a message that comes off as potentially negative, you might want to help them relabel that message. Interventions continued, problem tracking. So having the family track their progress towards target goals while refraining from focusing on past problems. So you want them to just make sure that they're not thinking or rethinking about past issues that they had with that family member. Also manipulating space. So assigning seats during session to highlight structures within the family that promote or demote structural arrangements. And lastly, role play. So directing members to role play a discussion between themselves to develop a better understanding of what their needs and wants are. This can also be done in reverse, so reverse role play, where members play the role of another member of their family to improve communication. And the most important aspect of any of these interventions is repetition. So when to end structural family intervention, when the role plays begin to show like super drastic improvement in communication. Once that happens, role plays can be used to focus on potential scenarios that families may face in the future. Also, time measures. This is a goal that can be tracked over time to ensure that alliances and/or boundaries improve. Once there has been enough reporting on the goal, the social worker should be able to summarize how relations have changed. And there's also a formal instrument that can be used to measure these interventions, or to measure how well the family is doing. This is called a family assessment device. This measures the structural, organizational, and transactional characteristics of the family. And a few limitations about this theory. It de-emphasizes members' emotional lives and focuses on the family system as a structure. So practitioners believe that if the structure of the family improves, it will result in an overall better quality of life, which in essence, accompanies emotional lives. Practitioners may also be biased toward what they deem appropriate for the family structure. Families are different, and practitioners should not have assumptions about the families before understanding their culture and norms. And lastly, it only focuses on the immediate nuclear family and not the extended family.
Now we are going to discuss critical social work practice. Critical social work practice, or CSW, is an alternative approach that helps the client attain the goals that the social worker has identified, such as social goods and services, self-determination, and social justice. There are 4 main practice features when using CSW. The first one is a holistic approach to understanding and making the client's situation better. This approach impacts assessment, goal settings, and strategy choices. The goals may include, on a personal level, changing patterns of dominance and oppression, or on the societal level, goals may include strengthening sense of community, expanding awareness of oppression practices among communities, and changing public discourse on oppressed social groups. These strategies reflect the view that social change is possible and that human beings have the ability to promote it and to resist oppressive power relations. The second feature is a heightened sensitivity to powers between social workers and their clients. The social worker power is openly discussed. Social workers are called upon to acknowledge and narrow the power gap, to use their powers to obtain essential resources for service users. They are also expected to help service users discern power relations that affect their lives and to examine how their own power relations with the others in their work environment affects their practice. The third one is partnership and dialogue. So service users, families, and community members and other professionals are all viewed as essential partners. Partnership is essential because it enables service users and the others involved to be heard. It contributes their knowledge to gain control over processes that reflect social power. For a partnership to be beneficial, the relationship must be based on mutual respect and sharing of insights and communication. The fourth feature is social workers' awareness and attention to the power of language. Avoidance of language that creates distance between the social worker and their clients or reinforces the uneven power relations between them. To choose language that will not reinforce oppression discourse but will oppose and create an alternative to them. There are some barriers when using CSW. The education the social workers received, the language in which their directives are written, the organizational cultures they operate within, heavy caseloads, needing to make immediate decisions regarding socially powerless service users or the clients. Not all clients can or want to assume the responsibility inherited in collaborating partnership or to engage in a dialogue and sharing of the knowledge that CSW requires. The critical social worker report. A critical social worker report is a way social workers can incorporate CSW into their practice. This report serves as the basis for decision-making on a wide variety of matters. It is an important part of social workers' practice and of crucial importance to the lives of the clients. There are 3 features and 6 objectives to the CSWR. So the features of the CSWR. It should reflect the writer's awareness that social worker reports are not neutral professional documents that describe objective reality, but political documents that reflect moral judgments and impact the distribution of resources, social recognition, and power. The report can reinforce or challenge institutional classifications, constructs, and actions. It is important that writers of CSWRs consider the contextual construction of the situation of individuals and families, as well as the declared and undeclared reasons for writing the report. Number 2 is it is important that the CSWR be written in partnership with service users and other relevant parties. It should be based on a wide variety of knowledge and interpretations. It should avoid one-dimensional perspective on adversity. CSWR should show careful attention to language. Their language should be accessible to those about whom they are written. Avoid languages that reflect or result in stigmatization of categorization of the clients. Phrasing that readers to understand service users' needs and rights should be aspired to. Objectives of CSWR. In addition to providing information, 6 objectives can be identified. So the first 4 of these objectives pertain to the service users about whom the report is written. The first 2 of the objectives are to recognize the service users' adversity and hardship and to increase their material and symbolic resources. The third is to serve as a symbolic resource that enhances service users' self-esteem by presenting them as multidimensional individuals with strengths as well as difficulties. The fourth is to give service users the opportunity to make their voice public, bring their narratives into the open, and convey their unique knowledge. The fifth is to serve as a platform for open discussion of the power relations between social workers and their clients and of service users' life story. It is important that social workers declare their responsibilities. It should encourage new ways of viewing past events and behavior which give credit to service users' strength in coping. Enables them to resist their internalized oppression and impose social cultural narrative. The last objective is to impact the understanding and practice of the professional who receives the reports and of their organizations. The goal of this report is to convey a structural and cultural understanding of the service users' problems. It's to acquaint the readers with concepts of human rights, replace negative stereotypes of the clients with holistic comprehension, encourage greater respect and less criticism and blame. The report should alter perceptions of groups of service users and institutionalize classifications and foster anti-oppressive discourse and practice in social care services. Thank you for listening to our presentation.